are listening to the Up and Under podcast, starting in 3, 2, 1.
Yo, what's up, guys? Welcome into the Up and Under podcast. I'm your host, Hani. Join with me, as always, it's Zishan.
Yo.
Alright, man. So as promised, if you haven't checked out last week's episode, definitely do so. We broke down our Eastern Conference All-Star picks. And again, as promised, we're here this week to bring you guys our Western Conference picks. And with the Eastern Conference, kind of what we mentioned in last week's episode, it was a lot more cut and dry than years have passed. There's a lot more star power that has moved from the West to the East, which made things a little bit easier to kind of predict. But the Western Conference is completely different. Now there's more competition, there's newer teams, and the West, I would say, has the better basketball product in terms of you have a lot more competition from all the potential playoff teams in the conference.
Well, I think it's like throughout the whole conference, I would say it's a little bit more competitive, but in terms of Eastern Conference, the top teams are more competitive than the Western Conference. I think the top teams from the East are better. Also, we have to say, I guess we can announce our amendment to the Eastern Conference team we announced last week. Looking back, we might have made a mistake, and we'll own up to it if you agree. But for me personally, I think instead of Bradley Beal, we should have had Darius Garland as our last pick. But either way, you can't go wrong. But Darius Garland he's good, bro.
I mean, we chose the bigger name in Bradley Beal, so, you can't really blame us, but at the same time, Darius Garland is definitely having a great season, and he's definitely making a good case for himself to become an All-Star this season. But we're not talking about the Eastern Conference All-Stars. We're talking about the Western Conference All-Stars. And just like, obviously, the Eastern Conference, the format is the same. For the starters, there's going to be 2 guards and 3 forwards. For the reserves, there's going to be, again, 2 guards, 3 forwards, but 2 wildcard spots as well. So starting off with the starting 5 for the Western Conference All-Stars. First guard spot, we're going to give it to none other than Steph Curry. The guy has been on an absolute tear this season. He already broke the all-time record in three-pointers made. He was a front runner or has been in the discussion for the MVP race since the beginning of the season. And he's been a big reason why the Warriors have been as good as they have been, despite Klay missing basically half the season.
Well, basically the whole season to this point.
Yeah, pretty much. Klay's been out for 2 years, and Steph Curry's been carrying the load. He's averaging 26 points per game, 5 rebounds, 6 assists, shooting 42% from the field, 38% from 3. Again, what is there more to say about Steph Curry besides the fact that he's one of the best players in the league right now? He is playing at an all-time level, and the Warriors are doing well.
Yeah, he's been on a little bit of a slide. He's kind of pushed himself out of MVP contention in the last couple of weeks. And today it's been his least efficient season in a while. But a lot of that has to do with, notably, a guy that we're going to talk about later, and Draymond Green also being out and just showcasing his value to the team. But Steph Curry, besides this last stretch of games, especially I think too, Steph Curry's had to adjust a little bit with Klay coming back. And obviously, guys like Wiggs, Jordan Poole are going to, go through a stretch of trying to adjust with Klay Thompson being there. And I don't think Steph Curry is any different. But Steph Curry, besides the last couple of weeks, has been on an absolute tear. Like Hani mentioned, he broke the all-time record held by Ray Allen in terms of three-pointers made. And he's been an MVP candidate barring these last couple of weeks for the whole season. And again, he's still the greatest shooter of all time. He's arguably the most dangerous offensive weapon in the game today. And I think this has probably been his best defensive season to date as well. He's been really good on that end. That could be attributed to the fact that, his efficiency has gone down on the offensive end. Perhaps that's why, because he's been playing such great defense. But, to his credit, he's been a good two-way player for the Warriors this season. The Warriors themselves have been, one of the best, top 3 teams in the league, with a top 15 offense and then obviously the best defense in the league.
Yeah, again, so obviously first guard spot, no-brainer, we're going to give it to Steph Curry. The second guard spot, now this is one where, again, if for those of you that haven't been following his career since he was drafted a couple of years ago, I basically fell in love with this player as soon as I saw him play But this season, I think since I guess the end of November, his team has just been on an absolute tear. And
They've been the best team in the league since November,
yeah, they've been on incredible run.
or maybe the second best besides Phoenix, but they've been up there.
They've been up there in the top teams in the league, and a lot of it has to do with this man, and it's Ja Morant. We're gonna give the second All-Star guard spot to Ja Morant, and for very good reason. I mean, the guy's averaging nearly 24 points a game, 6 rebounds, almost 7 assists, shooting 48% from the field, 35% from three. And again, he's leading this young but hungry Memphis team. Ja plays hard on offense. He plays hard defensively. The guy, he's a bona fide star. He's a bona fide winner, and he's a steal of a pick for the Memphis Grizzlies to get him at the number 2 pick in the 2019 draft, and to have him perform to these levels is absolutely incredible.
Yeah, he's cemented himself as a top MVP candidate with these last, however many games. The Grizzlies, for their part, they've kind of resembled... I'll agree with Charles Barkley here in terms of the fact that they've resembled that kind of Spurs, Miami, Toronto-esque team, where despite whoever's been in or out, they've just been winning. They went on that 7-game winning streak when Ja Morant got injured. He came back, they lost the game, and then they went on like a 10-game winning streak or whatever it was. So Ja Morant has just been the catalyst of a very, very impressive Memphis Grizzlies team overall. From top to bottom, they've just had great contributors on the team. When we talk about guys like Desmond Bane, Steven Adams, Jaren Jackson Jr.,
Dylan
Brooks, John Conchard just had a huge game as well. Xavier Tillman, the list goes on. But Ja Morant's no doubt being the leader of that team. And the fact that he's gotten his team to the 3rd seed in the Western Conference is very impressive in itself. But like I said, he's been just on an absolute tear this season and is a bona fide MVP candidate as of right now.
Yeah, again, he's one of my favorite players to watch this season, especially just the way that it's a very Westbrook-like approach where he's going to go hard every single night. And I love the way he's very true with the media. He's very true with the fans. Like he told that kid who's wearing the Warriors jersey, that, look, I'm not going to dap you up until you change your jersey. I respect stuff like that. Like he's a competitor, and he's definitely a winner, and he definitely deserves to be an All-Star this season.
In terms of the Westbrook comparison, I've also heard that, but I would give him more of the comparison of D Rose, because D Rose, no offense to Westbrook, but Westbrook isn't the most high IQ player out there.
But in terms of, I'm talking about the intensity that he brings, it's Westbrook-like, and that's something that you can't teach that. And Ja Morant definitely has that. He for sure deserves to be an All-Star this season. Moving us on to the first forward spot of the All-Star starters for the Western Conference. And this one, again, people are going to argue it because they always like to
I don't think anybody's arguing it at this point.
Well,
maybe in the beginning of the season, not anymore.
I mean, people always argue stuff with this guy, and it's LeBron James. Like, LeBron, what is there more to say about LeBron James? The guy is in year 19, by the way. Damn, we feel old. And he's still carrying the Lakers. Like, the fact of the matter is the Lakers were trying to get pieces so that LeBron doesn't have to carry the load. But ultimately, it didn't work, and LeBron's having to carry the load. He's averaging 28.8 points per game, 7.5 rebounds, 6.5 assists, shooting 51% from the field, 36% from three. And remember, he's in year 19 of his career.
Yeah, this guy, if the Lakers weren't so bad, he would definitely be an MVP candidate again. But, it's LeBron, there's nothing more to say about LeBron at this point. But the fact that he's in year 19 and is still managing to carry a team. And again, this is his highest scoring season, in a couple of years. There's that graphic of, 10 years ago, KD and LeBron leading the league in scoring, and 10 years later, they're both doing the same thing again, which is crazy, right? Shout out Kevin Durant too. But LeBron, man, this guy was the league's leading scorer 12, 13 years ago, around that time. And he's right up there once again. And again, he's had to carry this Lakers team because they've just been so bad, especially defensively. And then on offense, it's been a complete mess with always disabled and the Russell Westbrook. So it's just been terrible for the Lakers overall. But, once again, the one bright spot for this team, as is the case with all LeBron-led teams, is the fact that they have LeBron James to carry them on a nightly basis, basically.
I think it's just him, man. No matter where he goes, man, he's gonna have to carry the load. He can never catch a break, man. But yeah, LeBron for sure is gonna be an All-Star. For sure, he's gonna be an All-Star starter this season. Bringing us into the next forward spot. Now, a lot of injuries have definitely played a factor in some of our decision making because there are some key guys who normally would be All-Stars in the West are hurt right now or won't be available for the All-Star game or haven't played enough to be voted in. Which is why, but there's one player who's obviously has maintained his health for the most part this season. He's the reigning MVP. The next forward spot is going to go to Nikola Jokic. Again, he's probably the least talked about reigning MVP, I think, in NBA history, just for the fact that the guy, he won the MVP last year. He's still putting up MVP level numbers. He's putting up 25 points a game, nearly 14 rebounds, 7 assists as a center. He's shooting 56% from the field, 36% from three. And the Denver Nuggets are still in the midst of a playoff spot, despite not having Jamal Murray for the whole season.
Bro, despite not having the whole team, basically.
Pretty much. Like, the Denver Nuggets have been littered with injuries, but Nikola Jokic is still there. He's still showing up. And he's still leading the team, in the way he's supposed to. Actually carrying the team to wins, which is still impressive.
We talk about, the carrying job that LeBron seemingly did on a yearly basis in Cleveland. This is right up there, in my opinion. Like, Nikola Jokic, and the fact that, again, like you mentioned, people aren't even talking about him, giving him the respect that he deserves. This guy's a reigning MVP. This guy in the beginning of the season, I don't know what the numbers say right now, but he had literally the most efficient season of all time. He was on pace for the most efficient season of all time. This guy is the best passing big man we've ever seen, no doubt about it. This guy's one of the great scoring big men we've ever seen as well, no doubt about it. And this guy's improved his defense to the point now where the Denver Nuggets are a good defensive team, and they're so much better with him on the court defensively, which would have been an impossible thought a couple of years ago. But, we say great players maintain their greatness because of how hard they work on their game. And Nikola Jokic has definitely worked extremely hard, especially on the defensive end, to the point now where he's a very good defender in his own right. And the stats back that up as well. So Nikola Jokic, again, he's the reigning MVP for a reason. He's once again an MVP candidate. If he's able to get his team up to that 5th, 4th seed, then I think he's going to be in that, one of those top one of those top spots for MVP candidacy again. But like I said, greatest passing big man of all time, one of the best scorers and at the big man spot we've ever seen, and arguably the best center in today's league.
Yeah, no, for sure. Definitely Nikola Jokic for sure deserves to be an All-Star this season, and an All-Star starter at that. Which brings us to our final forward spot for the Western Conference All-Star starters. And this is one, again, like I was just mentioning, there were some players who we might have put up here instead of the player that we're about to mention. But the player we're about to mention definitely deserves some of our attention, especially considering how well his team has been playing and how well he's been playing individually. And we're talking about Rudy Gobert. Rudy Gobert currently averaging nearly 16 points a game, 15 rebounds a game, shooting 71% from the field. And again, I think he's averaging close to 2 blocks a game again, which, he is. He's averaging nearly 2.5 blocks a game, which, again, for Rudy Gobert is still incredible how good he is, not only as a deterrent or as a shot blocker, but again, just being a presence now, offensively now. Now he's not just a lob threat. The guy he's going to gobble every rebound. He's going to dunk it on your head. He's working on the mid-range game a little bit more. But again, it's contributing all for the Jazz to win, and they're the 4th seed currently in the Western Conference. And again, he's the key to their defense. Like, he's the key to their defense, and now he's upped his offensive game this season.
Well, I mean, he's the key to the team on both sides of the court. The reason why the Utah Jazz's offense is as good as it is because of Rudy Gobert. He's by far their most important offensive player. He's not the best offensive player on their team. We'll get into who is, but he's the most important offensive player on their team just because of how much gravity he gets when he, on those dives to the rim, on those pick and rolls. He's the guy that makes the Utah Jazz offense roll to the degree that it does. And then obviously we know he's one of the greatest defenders of all time. His stats prove that. Multiple time DPOY winner.
3-time.
Yeah. And again, he's just one of the most disrespected stars in today's league just because of the fact that he's not a flashy guy. He doesn't jump out on the stat sheet. casual fans don't really see anything special about him. But if you understand basketball, you understand how good and impactful of a player Rudy Gobert is. No matter what the people say about his playoff performances. Now, again, last year especially, I feel like he got a lot of flack for no reason, just because of the fact that, again, I'll mention this one more time. What defenders do the Utah Jazz have aside from Rudy Gobert?
Royce
My
O'Neal. That's the only guy I can think
again,
of.
my point exactly, which is why there's a reason why the Utah Jazz defense fails in the playoffs every year. Relying on one guy to carry your defense to the degree that he does is not conducive to long-term success. And the fact that they've been so good defensively with him speaks volumes about how great of a defender he actually is.
Yeah, for sure. So those were our Western Conference All-Star starters. Just to recap, the guard spot, we have Steph Curry and John Morant. The forwards, we have LeBron James, Nikola Jokic, and Rudy Gobert. Which brings us into the All-Star reserves for the Western Conference this season. And we're going to start off with our first guard spot. And people are going to say a lot about this pick, especially considering his numbers aren't the most eye-popping. But considering where his team is at and the impact that he has made over the last couple of seasons with this team, there's no doubt about it. The guy deserves to be an All-Star. And we're talking about Chris Paul. Chris Paul, he's currently averaging nearly 14 points a game, about 4 rebounds, 10 assists, which, again, is light work for Chris Paul, shooting 47% from the field, 32% from 3. And again, the Phoenix Suns are the number 1 seed in the Western Conference, number 1 seed in the NBA right now, and Chris Paul is a big reason for that. Because, again, he is the floor general. He's the guy that makes this offense go. He's the guy that leads this team on and off the court. And again, his impact, we saw it last season. Maybe we all didn't believe it all last season. This season, the Suns are still winning. They're still doing well. And Chris Paul is a big reason for that.
Yeah, Chris Paul, again, he was the best point guard at one time in the NBA. He's still up there. And again, people have really started to value and appreciate his effectiveness and his ability as a player in these last few seasons. First with, obviously, in OKC, and then now in Phoenix, where he's been, a low-key MVP candidate, to be honest. He's the engine that makes the Phoenix Suns run. He's their key on the offensive end. And then defensively, he's not the same defender he once was, but he can still turn it up when he needs to. And again, he's doing all of this, in year, what was he, 16, 17, whatever year he is.
Yeah,
right?
Like 16. Yeah.
So, yeah, like Chris Paul, again, he's called the point guard for a reason. And, the Phoenix Suns have been the best team in the league in large part due to Chris Paul.
Yeah. Which, speaking of the Phoenix Suns, because they are the number 1 seed in the NBA, we feel they deserve 2 All-Stars. And obviously, based on the play of their 2 guards, both their starting guards, and Chris Paul and, of course, Devin Booker is our second guard spot for the reserves. And again, he's such a good compliment to what Chris Paul is because, again, Chris Paul loves to pass the ball. Devin Booker loves to score the ball. Devin Booker is currently averaging 24.6 points per game, 5.3 rebounds, 4.4 assists, shooting nearly 45% from the field and 40% from 3. Devin Booker is just clicking on all cylinders in terms of he scores the ball so effortlessly. And again, he's a big reason why the Suns are able to be as effective as they are because now you got playmaking, you're getting scoring, you're getting the entire package, and you're getting defense from their wings, good play from their center spot. It's just a well-balanced team. But again, because of the number 1 seed, they deserve 2 All-Stars, and Devin Booker is definitely playing at an All-Star level this season.
Yeah, Devin Booker has been a recurring All-Star for sure for the past couple of seasons. He's gone better on the defensive end. His playmaking really took a jump right before Chris Paul came. Obviously, with Chris Paul now, he doesn't have to play make that much, but he showed he's very capable of playmaking on a very high level. But again, his role on this team is to score, and he's one of the best at that in the league. This guy doesn't really miss shots. He's a master of the mid-range. He doesn't miss his threes.
Master of the clutch fadeaway.
Yeah. His post-game is elite at a young age. His finishing could get a little bit better, but, he doesn't rely on that as much because of the fact that he's such a good shooter overall. So Devin Booker, he's one of the best scorers in the league. And, again, he's the second best player on the best team in the league.
Yeah, for sure. So those were the 2 guard spots, bringing us into the forward spots for the reserves. the first forward spot. And although he's injured currently right now, his play at the beginning of the season and when he wasn't, until he got hurt, was sensational, and also the reason why he was in a lot of MVP discussions at those times. And we're talking about Paul George. Paul George currently averaging about 25 points per game, 7 rebounds, 5.5 assists, shooting 42% from the field, 32% from three. And again, Kawhi Leonard has been out for the whole season, and he's going to probably be out for the remainder of the season.
Although they said he might come back now.
Yeah, there is a possibility that he could come back this season. But again, the Clippers really were down their main superstar. So Paul George really stepped up and really was leading this team on both ends of the court, to be honest with you, and really helping the team stay afloat until Kawhi got back. Now, obviously, it kind of sucked that Paul George ended up getting hurt himself. But before he got hurt, he was definitely playing at a near MVP level.
Yeah, like the Clippers were a very good team to start out the season, and nobody really saw that coming. But Paul George, to his credit, I think was playing the best basketball of his career before he got injured. And, that's saying something for a guy who's been that good throughout his whole career as a two-way player. And again, Paul George, he was a little bit uncomfortable in his first couple of seasons in LA. He's kind of gotten a lot more comfortable, and you saw it on the court. He was just in the zone, right? Like just a player who knew what he was doing, a veteran player who understood the game on another level, who just knew what he was doing, like I said. And without Kawhi there, he really was forced to, up his scoring, take a bigger role on the offensive end, take a bigger role on the defensive end. And he really responded to that. And he, like I said, he was playing, I think, the best basketball of his career. Certainly the best basketball I've ever seen him play. And the Clippers were a very good team to start the season. Now, again, like Hani mentioned, he is injured right now. If he doesn't make the All-Star game, it's basically going to be because of the fact that he didn't get enough games under his belt. But I think just based on the fact that how good of a player he was before this injury, and the fact that he was in MVP contention and MVP talks before this injury, I think that at least warrants a spot on the bench for the All-Star game.
Yeah, for sure. Moving us into our next forward spot, and this is where injuries and the lack of, I guess, forwards that have are in the Western Conference currently, has kind of played, came into effect. Where it was actually quite difficult to choose, these last, the last couple of forward spots, but I think Zishan brought up the point where they are one of the best teams in the league right now. We mentioned him earlier, and he's a big reason why the team was winning so much before he ended up getting hurt. But because he's the leader on both ends, like he's the guy that will facilitate the offense and still anchor the defense. And we're talking about Draymond Green. Now, Draymond Green, the numbers aren't eye-popping at all. He's averaging about 8 points a game, 7 rebounds, 7 assists, shooting about 53% from the field and 29% from three. But let's be real. Draymond's three-pointer kind of fell out like 4 years ago. But again, the impact he makes, not only being a leader, but also being the guy, just the playmaker, the facilitator offensively that he is, but also the defensive player that he is, just his ability to switch, his ability to just use his head and guard any type of player is why he's so effective, and why when he's on the court for the Warriors defense vaults to being the top defense in the league, versus when he's not, it drops significantly. So, yeah, that definitely warrants Draymond being on the All-Star game.
Yeah, Draymond Green, again, he is averaging his triple single, So, again, like you said, the numbers are not eye-popping. Casuals will not respect Draymond Green, but people who know basketball understand how great of a player Draymond Green is. And that can be signified more than, the lack of success, or at least for their standards, the lack of success the Warriors have had after Draymond Green got injured. We mentioned Steph Curry, his shooting has dropped significantly, and his shooting dropped significantly after Draymond Green got injured. He just does so much for that Warriors offense. It's absolutely insane. His screen setting, the fact that he's the primary playmaker on the team, the fact that he has that 6'7" frame, he can see a lot over the defense. And he's just the engine that makes the Warriors offense run. And then, like you mentioned, they're the top defensive team for a reason. And when we talk about Draymond Green, I've said this before. I've heard it. I think Kenny Beecham might have said it. But he is one of those rare players similar to Rudy Gobert who is not only part of the defensive system, he is the defensive system. In terms of the fact that the Warriors would be nowhere near what they are defensively without a guy like Draymond Green to do everything that he does for you on the defensive end in terms of anchoring the back line, being able to switch out on the perimeter, and just being like a next level genius on that side of the floor. And so Draymond Green, again, his numbers are not eye-popping, but the fact that the Warriors are the second best team in the league right now, the fact that they have the best defense in the league, and the fact that they had, one of the best offenses in the league prior to Draymond Green being injured, proves how good of a player Draymond Green is and why he deserves an All-Star nod.
Yeah, and I know Warrior fans are going to be like, oh, why didn't you put Wiggins in? But in terms of, we go by who deserves the spot. And in terms of, if we're going to pick two guys from the Warriors, we're going to choose their two most impactful guys, and that's Steph Curry and Draymond Green, just to clear that up. Bringing us into the final forward spot for the Western Conference All-Star Reserves, and we're going to give this one to Karl Anthony Towns. Now, Karl Anthony Towns has obviously had probably the worst year or two, the worst couple of years for any player. And I'm talking more so not only just on the court, but off the court as well, just in terms of everything that's happened to him. But he's having a great bounce back year this season, and so have the Timberwolves. Karl Anthony Towns is averaging about 24 points per game, 9 rebounds, about 4 assists, shooting 52% from the field, 41% from 3, which I believe is a career high for him. And again, Karl Anthony Towns we always knew the talent was always there with Karl Anthony Towns. We always knew that he had that ability to be one of the best bigs in basketball. And again, this year he's proving why he was in that position. He not only can he score at all three levels with the three-point shot returning to him, but he has so much potential defensively now. This season he's averaging about a block and a steal per game as well. And the Timberwolves are actually winning games, which is the biggest knock on him I think I could have probably said, because the Timberwolves weren't winning. He was putting up all these stats, all these numbers, but if the team wasn't winning, then what's the point? And now the team is currently the 7th seed in the Western Conference, and they're actually looking like a competent team with Karl Anthony Towns playing the way he is.
Well, listen, Karl Anthony Towns has played at an all-star level since his career started. It's just these last couple of years, again, the team was pretty garbage. He was kind of going up and down. But, he talked about how, everything that happened to him kind of just cleared up his head and just helped him focus on nothing but basketball. And credit to him, he looks like a completely different player now than he ever has. One thing I've noticed for sure is that his intensity this season's on a whole nother level. He's getting in players' faces. He's, really going all out, which I respect a lot. And again, like I said, it makes sense given, like he said, everything that he went through. But I got to shout out Chris Finch because of this as well. Chris Finch has taken this team to that next level. He's made them a competent team, especially in the Western Conference.
Chris Finch from the Nick Nurse coaching tree, by the way.
Exactly. So Chris Finch has just taken them on another level, and especially their offseason additions, low-key additions, but really, really good pickups for them in terms of Patrick Beverley. I mean, Jay McDaniels, or is it Jeremy? Whichever McDaniel twin it is, he's also been great for them. Their pickups on the defensive end, or their players on the defensive end, have really helped to balance out the team, because obviously we know their potential offensively with D'Lo, Malik Beasley, Cat, Anthony Edwards, but the rest of those guys have really helped them balance out the team defensively. And then that's made guys like D'Angelo Russell, Anthony Edwards, and Karl Anthony Towns really up their game on the defensive end as well. And so, like you mentioned, the Timberwolves have been a competent team this season, and they've been pretty solid. And Karl Anthony Towns, no doubt, has been their best player, and which is why, again, I think he deserves a nod for the All-Star game this year.
Yeah, for sure. Bringing us finally into the last two spots on the reserves list, and those are the two wildcard spots. This could be any type of player, a guard or a forward. So the first wildcard spot, we're obviously going to give this one to Luka Doncic. Luka Doncic, again, we've talked about Luka Doncic a lot, and this is probably considered a down year in terms of whatever we've seen from Luka. I think a lot of that has to do with, obviously, the workload he's had to deal with the Mavs, and also just playing in the Olympics, not really getting a lot of time to rest and recover, and you're kind of seeing him with that slow start. But again, he's still averaging about 24.6 points per game, 8.6 rebounds, 8.8 assists, shooting 43% from the field, and again, the weak spot, 29% from three. But again, he's leading the Mavs offensively. He's literally the Mavs offense. And again, somehow they're still the fifth seed. And I think a lot of that has to do with Luka Doncic just being great in his own right. Like he can score, he rebound, he play makes. There's not much the guy can't do besides maybe being defensively. But again, he has the size to be a defender, and when he wants to play defense, he can definitely do it.
Yeah, Luka Doncic, again, his efficiency has kind of fallen off a cliff this season. A lot of it has to do with injuries. Obviously, he's talked about how he needs to get his conditioning better as well. On the eye test, he hasn't been, I don't think, the most diligent in terms of his body this season. But the fact of the matter is that Luka Doncic is still one of the best young players in the league. He's still looked as arguably, the heir apparent to, for example, Giannis Antetokounmpo, even though they're not too far apart in terms of age. But he's one of those guys that's looked to carry the mantle from guys like LeBron James and Kevin Durant. And he's still been a very good all-around player on the offensive end this season. Again, the reason why the Mavericks, I think, are still as competent as they are is because somehow they've turned themselves into a good defensive team, which is very surprising. They're the fourth best defensive team in the league this season. And again, it's not like I don't think they've done too much different. But they've basically just, it looks like, we know their offense has been on a historic level for the past couple of years. It seems like they've just, done away with the offense and just being like Luka Doncic, Jalen Brunson, carry us offensively. Whereas defensively is where they're putting all the effort. And again, I've been pleasantly surprised with Jason Kidd, so I'll give him his credit. Credit where credit's due. For now. But, Luka Doncic, again, the Mavs are still a playoff team, and they definitely warrant a representative to the All-Star game. And for that reason, again, Luka Doncic's stats are still pretty solid. So Luka Doncic definitely deserves to be in the All-Star game.
Yeah, for sure. But also, the Mavs are doing well because any team Boba is on does well.
Factual.
He's just a GOAT. That's just factual information. Moving us finally into the final All-Star reserve spot. It is the final wild card spot. And this is one that, honestly, I don't think we thought too long about. It was pretty obvious considering the way his team has been playing and the way he's been playing individually. We're going to give it to Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell is averaging about 25 points a game, 4 rebounds, 5 assists, shooting 45% from the field, 34% from three. And again, we mentioned it earlier with Rudy Gobert. The Jazz have the fourth seed in the Western Conference right now. And again, a lot of that has to do with Donovan Mitchell, again, carrying the offense, being the offense for the Utah Jazz. He can score at all three levels. But now he's getting support and help from guys like Rudy Gobert, Mike Conley, Bojan Bogdanovic, Joe Ingles. The Jazz have a good complementary pieces. But again, the main focal point, the main guy offensively is Donovan Mitchell, and he's clearly putting up the numbers to back that up.
Yeah, Donovan Mitchell, again, is their best offensive player. Like I said, Rudy Gobert, I think, is their most important offensive player, but Donovan Mitchell is definitely their best offensive player, especially in the fact that, he's asked to bail them out a lot of times. Guys like Bojan, Joe Ingles, Jordan Clarkson, I'm missing somebody, Mike Conley are very good in their own right. But I think, we look at scoring at an elite level, and Donovan Mitchell is probably their only elite scorer on the team. And so, again, there wasn't too many other players that we're kind of considering for these last two spots.
I mean, we could have considered them first-time All-Stars, but in terms of, again, we value winning. We also value how good you're playing individually. So it's kind of a hybrid of what we believe is considered an all-star. And these two guys, Luka Doncic and Donovan Mitchell, not only are their teams winning, but they're also putting up the numbers to back that up.
And again, some players that missed the cut, like you mentioned, Andrew Wiggins, Anthony Davis for sure, DeAndre Ayton could have been there.
Yeah. I mean, maybe Damian Lillard. I don't know.
I don't
maybe
think
because of the fan, but this season probably not. Yeah, I think those are the main snubs. Maybe Anthony Edwards is another one.
Anthony Edwards for sure.
Yeah.
There wasn't too many I think our team was pretty solid, to be honest. I think the East may have been a little bit more controversial in terms of the guys that didn't make it. But I think the West is pretty solidly, in place or intact as well.
Yeah, for sure. And just to recap the reserves for the Western Conference All-Stars, our guard spots, we have Chris Paul and Devin Booker. Our forwards are Paul George, Draymond Green, and Karl Anthony Towns. And our wild card spots are Luka Doncic and Donovan Mitchell. Once again, let us know what you guys think in the comment section on YouTube or on social media. Do you agree or disagree with our list? Who would you put on this list instead? Definitely let us know. We would love to hear it. And again, these are just predictions and our picks on who we believe are All-Stars. They might be different than yours, but definitely let us know. We'd love to hear them too. Which brings us finally into the Up and Under segment to end off this episode. First and foremost, our favorite guy to talk about on this show. Man, he just doesn't go away. But are you up or under on Ben Simmons stating that he's willing to sit for the whole season if he's not traded by the deadline?
I'm under on him because again, he quit on his team.
He's way past quitting, bro. He's gone.
Again, no matter what anyone wants to say about how harsh the Philly fan base is.
I'm sorry, it affects his mental health.
Listen, man, maybe it affects his mental health, but we know what the real reason is, and I don't appreciate the fact that he uses mental health like that when a lot of other dudes have legit reasons, and your reason is that you don't want to work on your game and you're too entitled to, right? And again, what more can be said about Ben Simmons? Ben Simmons defenders will always say, Philly fans are too harsh, blah, 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 blah. And again, we come from a city where our fan base has been known to be harsh to a lot of players, especially in terms of hockey as well. But I don't really see it that way, man. Philly fans, similar to basically other fan bases, all other fan bases will support you if you play hard, if you try hard, if you work on your game.
It's a work ethic thing.
And you play well. And Ben Simmons has done none of those things. Again, he's been good in his career, but he hasn't been the player that we all know he can be. And it really pisses off fans. And again, I'm not even a Philly fan, but it really pisses me off as a fan of the game to see a guy who's arguably, a top 5 talent in the league play to the level that he does and then shrink the way he does and then, shy away to the level that he does and, try to deflect blame to the degree that he does. And again, I'm not going to blame Rich Paul in any of this because of the fact that Rich Paul is his agent. That's kind of what he's paid to do. So I'm not going to blame Rich Paul for this. But again, we know the main decision comes from Ben Simmons. And he doesn't want to come back because, he's too scared of what the fans will say. And I think that's a bogus reason. You want to make the fans get off your back, play better, work.
Listen, Joel Embiid missed his first couple of seasons in the league. But why do Philly fans adore him? Because he's worked hard to come back. He's always there. And he doesn't give up.
And he gets better every season.
He gets better. Joel Embiid, he was left in tears after Kawhi hit that shot. But what did he do? He comes back and looks like an near MVP candidate last year. Again, it's the work ethic, and especially in Philadelphia, they really appreciate a blue-collar work ethic. And just Ben Simmons, clearly, he hasn't shown that he has that yet. And that's kind of why the fans have kind of turned on him. And they're just like, yo, all right, screw you then. But yeah, man, I'm kind of over Ben Simmons. I also think the Sixers are also kind of screwing this up because, again, you're asking for an exorbitant amount, but the guy isn't worth that much. Nobody wants to pay that for him. So it's like both sides are kind of clashing and making it difficult.
I can't even say anything about the Sixers because they're in a position where it's damn if they do, damn if they don't. They need to recoup at least a decent amount for Ben Simmons. But the problem is Ben Simmons is also tanked his trade value. Right? And it's just a bad situation all around.
Oh, yeah.
That could have been resolved if Ben Simmons cared a little bit more about, actually working on his game and his actual basketball career. And not just the money and perks that came with it.
And the Sixers are trying to win a championship. If things kind of work out for them, they could realistically have a chance to win. But again, one of their best players are refusing to come to work.
And again, it's bad because of the fact that it's a bad precedent. Imagine any other job paying you $40 million a year and you're like, nah, I don't want to come in.
Yeah, well, he's getting fined anyways, so.
Well, he's getting fined and he should be, but, still, the Philadelphia 76ers gave him $40 million a year, despite, even people like us saying they shouldn't have done that when they did.
Bro,
they still trusted him and still gave him that $40 million a year. and he rewarded them by doing this stuff. So like again, Ben Simmons is one of the guys that I least respect in the NBA, to be honest. And stuff like this is why a lot of people agree with me.
Yeah.
Next up, are you up or under on the Boston Celtics trying to trade Al Horford and trying to acquire another big man in the process?
I'm under. Why the hell would you trade for him to begin with? Like that was one of your big offseason moves. We're gonna trade and get Al Horford back so we can get rid of Kemba Walker. Okay, well, we all saw what Al Horford was last season. He's a shell of himself. Now, granted, he is better with the Celtics than he was last year with the Thunder. But again, Al Horford is not a type of player who's gonna help you win games. He's a guy that's getting to the end of his career now. And he can do what he can. He's still serviceable in terms, in a limited role. But he's starting games for the Boston Celtics. You can't expect Al Horford to still be a valuable contributor when you're forcing him into a starting role that he's clearly not able to do anymore.
And again, they hoped that he would at least be able to be a stretch big for them on the offensive end and a facilitator. The playmaking is still there, but when your shot has abandoned him to the degree that it has, like, he's not going to be a valuable player on the offensive side of the floor. And then again, he's slower than ever. He's older.
And then the contract. The contract is also difficult to move. How do you move that? I don't really know what the Celtics expect to get back for him. Maybe a potential Miles Turner trade. They can use Al Horford's money as salary, but I don't see how that works.
Brad Stevens is not off to a good start, to be honest.
And it's great for us, man. It's amazing for us, man. But speaking of trades, we have our second trade of, I guess, before the trade deadline sort of starts, all those trades start rolling in. It's a 3-team deal between the Denver Nuggets, the San Antonio Spurs, and the Boston Celtics. In which case, the Denver Nuggets receive Bryn Forbes from the Spurs. The Spurs receive Juancho Hernangomez from the Celtics. And the Celtics receive the GOAT Bol and PJ Dozier. So, are you up or under on the trade?
I'm up on it simply because I want to see Bol go to a new situation where he gets minutes. Now, again, a lot of fans gloss over the fact that Bol has kind of sucked in the games that he's played, right? Like, let's not get that out of the way. He's very talented, but he kind of sucks. And he's a project. Right? But I do want to see him in a situation where at least he'll be able to get more chances than he has, which was never going to happen in a win-now team, a win-now situation like the Denver Nuggets. So I'm happy for him. PJ Dozier, hopefully, he recovers, and then, wherever he goes after the Celtics, I don't know if they'll keep him or not, but, he's a good young player. So hopefully he does well. And then the Nuggets obviously getting Bryn Forbes. One of the better shooters in the league. Just another floor spacer for them. Obviously, with the amount of injuries they've had, they need all the weapons that they can get. And, the Spurs...
I'm surprised the Spurs traded him.
Nah, he sucked. He sucked, to be honest. Milwaukee he was also pretty trash with Milwaukee Bucks.
Yeah.
And then the Spurs getting Juancho Hernangomez. I mean, cool. Nice.
Yeah. There's not much to it.
And then finally, I guess the first trade previous to this last trade was, are you up or under on Cam Reddish being traded to the Knicks for Kevin Knox and a 2022 first round pick that is via the Hornets? So it's the Hornets pick technically.
I'm up on it for the Knicks. I'm under on it for the Hawks. Now for the Knicks, obviously, again, their season hasn't been going well at all. And I wonder who might have called that. But basically, they need more scoring. They need they need more options. They can't just keep relying.
They need another defender too.
Yeah, and they can't just keep relying upon Julius Randle and RJ Barrett to carry the load for them, especially while D Rose is also battling injuries as well. So going out and getting a guy like Cam Reddish, who again probably didn't get a ton of opportunity in Atlanta, will definitely get some opportunities here in New York. And again, reuniting with his Duke buddy and RJ Barrett, I think this could work out for the Knicks in terms of, again, he's a former lottery pick. He's still a good player. He has the capability to shoot the ball. He has the tools to be a good defensive player. And you somehow got rid of Kevin Knox. I don't know how you were able to do that. But
well, again, that's an L for the Knicks because they're the ones who drafted him.
Yeah,
they drafted a lottery pick in Kevin Knox, and this guy has been a bench warmer for his whole career. So, again, that's not exactly the biggest W for the Knicks.
No, not at all. And somehow they were able to trade him. Yeah, and getting rid of the first. I mean, it's not even your first rounder. It's the Hornets pick, which probably will be a mid first rounder at the best. So I mean, it's not a bad package to trade away for a guy who you can realistically build around and use for the future. So
Yeah, and for the Hawks, I mean, Hawks fans were mad and rightfully so because I don't understand really what the Hawks are doing. Now, again, granted, the pick might turn out to be something. We could look down the line and be like, yo, they got a steal of a pick and they drafted so and so and he ended up being a star. That may happen. You never know. But Cam Reddish, in terms of who he is as a player and the potential that he has, the fact that this is the package that you got, and especially when they had other packages out there reportedly with some other quality players. I can't remember what the packages were exactly. But I know that they had some other decent offers out there. I think the main point for them was to get another pick out of this. But again, giving up a guy like Cam Reddish, who's a lottery pick, who has the amount of potential that he does, and getting Kevin Knox and a Charlotte pick in return is pretty underwhelming.
yeah, for sure. But yeah, with that concludes this week's episode. Definitely, we hope you enjoyed the episode. Definitely subscribe to the show on all the various platforms. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher Radio, YouTube. Basically, wherever you can find a podcast, you can find us with the Up and Under Podcast. Also, check us out on social media, Twitter and Instagram at up_n_podcast, facebook.com/up_and_podcast for all the latest updates whenever we post a new episode or a reaction to news as they occur. Also, check out our website, upandunderpodcast.com. It's a central hub for the show. It's a place where we write blog posts with every single episode. So if you don't have time to listen or watch the full episode, you can read about it on our website. Again, stay tuned. Changes will be coming to the website shortly within the next couple of weeks or so. We're still ironing out all those details, but those will be coming soon. So definitely stay tuned for that. And yeah, man, trade deadline is definitely coming. So we're going to definitely see more trades kind of trickle through as more and more teams are going to be trying to either, again, tank for the rest of the season or make a run at a potential playoff run. And yeah, All-Stars are also coming up. So these were our official All-Star picks. We'll see what happens with those, obviously. And hopefully the season still continues to keep moving. And yeah, we'll get to the playoffs in no time.
Hopefully.
But with that concludes this week's episode. We'll see you guys all in the next one. Take it easy.
Easy.